All right, folks, hang on. Got your little hold music there. Hang on. Getting everything set up. Sorry about the technical errors. I had to do a reboot. Okay, shut this one down. Be there in a second. Almost done getting ready, folks. Sorry, getting a lot of lag on my connection. Be there in a second. Just wanted you guys to know I'm almost there, folks. Getting everything synchronized on all the other chat platforms. I had to do some things different today. If that's too loud, I'll turn it down a bit. All right. All right, that's the problem. Got it. Sorry about that, folks. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, folks, when I had to reboot, it had to hey, there, it's working now. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we've got a good number of folks here. All right. Some copyright risk-free music there for you. That wasn't obvious. All right, welcome. Although I'm pretty sure the music lost me whatever few viewers I had. Yeah, I think so. That's all right. I had to get everything synchronized, guys. Sorry about all the lateness and everything like that. The problem is that I needed audio to play certain parts of the presentation, and then I recognized that as soon as I was ready to stream, which was on time, there was absolutely no audio coming from anything anywhere. So I was trying to test it out with some music. Hopefully everything's working now. So, all right, no further ado. Let's get into it. A lot of talk lately about various hacks, and so I wanted to do a quick discussion about some of them. So let's do a quick. You guys might have heard about this Pegasus hack. I'm just going to get a quick article on this so you kind of have an idea of what they're communicating that it is and some of my own observations on these things. But welcome. Thank you. Good morning to you too. Appreciate that. All right. So there's a couple issues that I've just had in the back of my mind for a few days now that I've been meaning to get on here and have a greater discussion about. Because those unfamiliar, I had about 2 decades in the wireless industry relative to smartphone technology, and how they interact between smartphones to cell towers. I was an expert in doing modifications to cell phone towers, mobile masts, which is to say that I was part of a lot of optimization as well as design of cell phone towers. I did quite a bit of device testing during my career. I worked for a few different companies over the span of 20 years. So, especially within the wireless industry, during one part of my career, I had, nearly 17 years. Actually, I had about 17 years with that one company alone, almost 18. With one rural telecommunications company, and that technology experience alone gave me, access to knowing how smartphones interact with cell towers. I modified cell towers. I repaired cell towers. I was the 24-hour repairman of cell towers for several years, literally to say that I had to get dispatched at any time one of them went down. I was sent out to these places out in the middle of nowhere in some cases, or in the middle of the city, in some very dangerous spots in some cases even. But yeah, that was just part of my job for many, many years. And so when I talk about these issues, I do have a better understanding of them than average. Although one thing that I will say is where I'm lacking a little bit is the recent technology experience. So to say that all of these things that are going on with 5G, I have not been personally immersed in at a career level. I was basically leaving as 4G technology had already been mostly implemented and was being optimized and still being rolled out with like the AWS frequencies that are 1.7 and 2.1 gigahertz bands. That was a big part of like what was going on towards the end of my career within wireless, which is to say that I just sort of opted out. I decided, even though I did leave on good terms, just in case you guys, anybody who wants to know why I do the material that I do, it really didn't have anything to do with me giving a middle finger to the industry. I had concerns about technology. I had a lot of people voicing their concerns to me, and I took some of that information seriously, and people's information I dismissed quite quickly because I thought it was disinformation. And I found that the truth is somewhere in between when it comes to deciphering these larger issues relative to is something safe or not safe. It's really not a quick black and white answer to nearly anything. And so what I've been trying to do with my material is that material that tends to be dealt with in more extremes and black and white type, conclusions within the media. I just try to offer those of you who want to understand it in a layman's perspective from a person who does have technology industry experience, to where I can maybe bridge the gap on why I have concerns that aren't black and white about all of these things that I'm going to talk about right now. Well, actually, some I actually do have some rigid opinions on, but things like the Freedom Phone, for example, which I'll talk about here briefly. Again, because these are the kind of things that when you have access to the type of information that I do in the industry, like, what brands of phones are a security joke, which is to say there's some phones, like, for example, I was a person that did device testing and system performance, and I was oftentimes entrusted to give my opinions while I was with the system performance engineering team about new devices, which is to say, like, if a new smartphone or an old feature phone from back in the day came out on the market, I would be one of the people that they would send the device to in advance of it being released to the public or being sold to the rest of the company. I was one of those people that oftentimes did evaluations. That's one piece of, part of what I did in my career. And those of us that, even if we weren't, that wasn't our specialty, if we were within engineering departments, we were usually given first priority, or a lot of us were entrusted to give our technical opinion about how a phone worked. And so, again, I just had a lot of access to early evolutions of technology, and I can evaluate them just a little bit better. I'd say significantly better than average from the wireless industry experience. Now, if you're in information technology or in information systems, like if you're ITIS, you specialize in routes of IP addresses. This is where what I understand about air interface relative to how phones can be exploited at the wireless frequency level, that I know a lot about. I know about brands that were like weaker than others. I knew about problems that existed with certain phones and how ones would get sent back by wireless companies because they didn't have good security or they didn't feel comfortable selling them at the company. And I do remember a lot of the brands that would be put tagged on the naughty list, you know, like they're like, no, we're not selling that one. I know everybody wants it, but we can't sell it because we don't feel like that's a secure device to have on our network, that type of thing. So I don't reveal all that type of, you know, internal information per se. I'm just allowing you guys insights into understanding that, yes, those conversations are had at the deepest levels of these companies. They do discuss are these devices safe for our network? My guess is that quite a few operators within America don't like the Freedom Phone. I wouldn't like it. As a person that's a radio frequency engineer and for a rural telecommunications company historically, where I worked for a company, you guys, you can look at my resume. I'm not going to say who they are out loud right now, but just feel free to look at it. The name's there. So, okay, that'll tell you. But I did a lot of design, optimization, performance, as well as deep dive engineering, as well as deep dive maintenance for a wireless company to understand all of what I'm going to tell you here. Now, companies are very rigid about what they accept into their networks historically. So when a company goes around saying like, hey, it's as simple as pulling your SIM out of that, AT&T, Verizon, whoever, Sprint, T-Mobile, whoever, quote, what generic wireless company name you want, wherever you are in the world, guys. Sorry, I'm not trying to advertise for anybody, but just like, they don't like it when you just pull a SIM out of your phone that they've approved to be on their network and slide it into a phone that has never gone through rigid testing by anybody inside their company. It horrifies them to think about the security exploits that could potentially happen in the background. And some companies may even move to say, like, if you have this phone, we're going to say that we don't want it on our network. We may ban your device from our network because it lacks security to such a degree. And I'm a little bit concerned about those of you who, look, I don't know, guys, understand that it's a possibility and that if it does happen, please be conscientious not to immediately go into the whole, they're censoring us. All right. Because I'm helping you guys understand. I'm fleshing out what may go on in the future if you'd opt into buying a Freedom Phone. Guys, I've never talked to the people at Freedom Phone. I'll put their thing up here. I'm not advertising, but since it's kind of popular with some of the folks that are conservatives, I wanted to sort of show this to you a little bit to kind of give you my insights into what it is and what it's been put out there as. Because, guys, a lot of these like conservatives are kind of throwing this out there like, hey, look, this is the Freedom Phone. It's our uncompromised app store that can't be censored, where we have OAnon News and Parler and all the apps, the Gab, all the ones that conservatives tend to gravitate towards. It'll come preloaded with these types of things. Oh, sorry, this is a article on Pegasus spyware. I'll get into that in a second. I'm talking about the Freedom Phone at the moment. This here, sorry, folks. So this is their website, freedomphone.com. And, my first concern is that, if you're doing something pretty legitimate, you would give technical specs. There is zero technical specs for this phone. So a customer is supposed to basically buy it on faith that, hey, it's a Freedom Phone. I'm going to be free, right? Awesome. Guys, you're going to spend $500 on something that you have no clue how much storage space is on it. Do you know? Do you know how much storage space is on it? Do you know how many different frequencies you can use on it as a quad band radio? Is it compatible with your 4G, 3G, 2G? Do you know all the different networks? Yes, I understand that it says it will work on it, but do you have the latest radios that will actually be able to use some of the high-speed data connections? And then here's all I'm asking, guys, because there's only one phone they're offering. And again, if these folks want to have an open conversation with me and I'll, say like whatever, that's cool, guys, because I'm not sitting here trying to like, this is very, very sensitive, guys, because all these conservatives are going to be all over this shit. Like, I bet he's one of them liberals that just don't. No, guys, I'm going to tell you straight up what's wrong with this. OK, this is kind of a bait trap for you. And I personally think that's my opinion. All right. And so I'm saying this out of love and respect because I think a lot of you they're getting a lot of the trusted players within the conservative media who I'm not faulting them for believing the hype. They may believe that this is a good idea. So here's all I'm going to explain to you about why it's a bad idea. Okay. Number one, all this thing is a modified it's like about $100 to $125 cheap Chinese manufactured smartphone by a company named Umidigi. And this is their website right here. And you can kind of see the price point of their devices. So this is one called the Umidigi Bison Pro. Oh, wait. Sorry, guys. I'm not trying to do it. Here's their phone selection. But you can kind of get an idea. Like, they're basically selling you one of these Umidigi phones here, whose price point is going to be somewhere in the $100 to $200 range if you buy them directly from their website. And so effectively what you're buying, yeah, I bet you this is the model right here would be my guess. Or it's, no, actually it's not even this nice. Yeah, because it's a 6 megapixel camera, I think. Maybe it's a 6-inch screen. Anyways, I'm not sure exactly which Umidigi phone that you're getting, but most people would consider this to be a pretty cool. Look, guys, it's a budget phone. In the industry, we used to call them overpriced paperweights. Just saying. You may have trouble finding cases for them, you know. I mean, just things like that, guys, to keep in mind. All right. And so here's another article from Ars Technica saying the MAGA-targeted Freedom Phone has a breathtaking amount of red flags. Yes, I agree. All right. So let's get past all what I just told you, okay, guys? Because again, I'm not really trying to, and again, I do appreciate. Look, I'm really not trying to rub it in, just so you know. But I got to be real with you guys because I've got a couple decades of experience and everything. And I know that no self-respecting conservative wireless industry friend of mine would buy one of these except for on anything but curiosity alone. And they would probably buy one just to find out how badly it's going to fuck up their network because they'll probably have cheap radios in them that aren't approved by the company. I'm telling you guys, there's a rigid testing process that every single wireless company I've ever worked for goes through before they ever approve a phone like that. Okay, excuse me, like that. So what should happen is the phone if they want their phone to be sold by the wireless companies, the company will submit like their device, and they'll have a company that actually interacts with the wireless companies that say like, hey, all of you major companies and lesser known companies, like we want our device on your network. Let us send you some of these so you can approve them so you can sell them in your stores. Well, if they don't get approved by the wireless companies, and my guess is that almost none of these cheap Umidigis, I don't know, guys, I haven't looked into it, but my guess is quite a few of them don't pass the approval phase for American cell phone networks yet. Legally, sure, they can be sold to people, and technically they could and might work. However, what you're going to have to be more and more conscientious of is, yes, I just want you to know, guys, seriously, the wireless companies, out of respect for their entire customer base, will at some point have to declare devices that don't pass their approval process and might be made by cheap Chinese manufacturers with malicious intentions. No matter how freedom phony you think these things are, the Freedom Phone might be freedom phony with its freedom. That's all I'm explaining to you. You might be like submitting all of your information in the back doors that go straight to the CCP. Just being real with you, this phone is lacking security on so many levels. And folks, I'm not going to tell you, let's be real here. Are the iPhone and the Android, when it really gets down to it, if you're a person that has information that's that desired and that wanted, I promise you it makes no difference if you have the best iPhone, the best Android, or the best Umidigi. So I'm not even attacking it at that level, guys, because the people that would defend this, they could say that. And you know what? To some level, they might be accurate. They could say, hey, you know what? There's tons of exploits in the iPhone. There's tons of exploits in Samsung's and LG's and HTC's and all their Android variations that we found. How could you say that Umidigi's any worse? How do you know it's not just a replica of one of those other phones but just hasn't gone through the approval process? All those things you could make arguments for, guys, and touche. All right. So what are you really getting if you know that that phone's worth about $100 to $120? Let's just give them $125 to say conservative. So their profit margin, what they're adding, they're boosting to whatever, because they're wholesaling these things, guys. It's not like they buy them for 120 from China. No, they're going to get them a lot cheaper than that. So let's assume that they're getting these things for around $100 a piece. That's probably conservative, guys. It's probably less than that. So they're probably getting these phones about $100. All right. Then all they're really doing is adding a $400 price tag onto a cheap Chinese knockoff, which has what? The Freedom operating system, the Freedom OS. Everybody says from all indications that what the Freedom OS is, and I would guess this is what it is too, is a modified variation of open source Android. That's it, guys. Android is open source, so all they do is take Android, modify it slightly, just like Amazon has their Fire OS. That's just modified Android. Freedom OS is just modified Android, okay? And then they call it Freedom OS. And then they create an app store that's just a replica of Google Play, but it adds in all of the Freedom OS company-approved apps, which are the ones that conservatives and MAGA people love. Cool, touche. Right there, that is the only benefit, as far as I can tell, to what you're all doing. You've created a system through which there is an easy portal that your customer base will absolutely be able to access Parler and Oanon and everything else that a tendency to be liberal technocracy would seek to remove from you. But what I'm asking you guys is this truly your freedom phone, or is this the technocracy tricking you into a bait trap? And I'm just saying that with respect and love. I'm not saying it to rub it in, guys. Honestly, you know, yeah, I can tell you that there's quite a few people that are chuckling about this back at the office, because if they're on the left and they're a wireless engineer, they're laughing their asses off that a bunch of conservatives are going to buy something that might actually get banned from the wireless companies' networks. And here's why I'm concerned about you guys, is because I know how they're going to play this on you psychologically. When that device gets banned from wireless networks because it's a cheap $100 Chinese phone with all types of security issues that could potentially cause problems in our country and on our wireless networks, they get banned for a reason, guys. Like, some phones get banned. I'm not saying this one's going to, guys. I'm just saying there's a high probability that it could. The potential is there in way greater probability than if this were an HTC, a Samsung, an LG, which could also have the potential of being banned in any different number of scenarios, guys. You have to understand, there's also certain scenarios through which a Huawei phone, which is probably one of the top manufacturers in the entire world globally of both hardware infrastructure, if not the largest. I think Huawei is the largest infrastructure manufacturer, which is to say the towers, the infrastructure that talks to the phones, is mostly built by a Chinese company, and that's Huawei. They have more market share than the ones that are based in Sweden, which is Ericsson, and Finland. Yes. Yeah, Finnish. Yeah, they're Finnish. And that would be Nokia Siemens. And I think they're just called Nokia Networks now. And so that's really what you have as far as like global span, as far as whatever is inside your cell towers, guys. It's either going to be from Sweden, Finland, or China. And then there's some other options, and I know this from my work experience, that not many companies go with as far as market share, but this may change. I don't know, because it's been years since I was in the industry. But Samsung Telecommunications of America, I did do some contracting with them, full disclosure. And so I'm aware that there is a South Korean company that also offers infrastructure, but they didn't have a lot of market share. And it takes a good decade to even begin to gain a lot of infrastructure, guys, really. Because if you want to sell a base station to a wireless phone company, they have to remove the old company's base station that's providing the link. You understand? And that takes all sorts of like changing your switch, changing everything about your company, is a huge, huge pain in the ass. Okay. All right. So the point I'm trying to make is that the reason why all of those good things go through approval process is like what I just told you about, like the approval for a cell phone. The same thing exists when it comes to approving the hardware for the base stations that go in. And so increasingly, products that are Chinese manufactured or come from Chinese companies are increasingly being turned down and told that they cannot do business within the United States because of the potential of the Chinese Communist Party having hacks or taps within the hardware that are not removable that could give them access to information within America. So what I'm explaining to those of you who are conservatives who might wind up buying, quote, freedom phones is, if someone tries to sell you on the idea that the reason why this phone gets, quote, banned from cell phone networks, my guess is someone's going to think ahead on this one in marketing and go like, hey, you see, we're so dangerous and so disrupting to the market. The wireless companies are banning us from their networks. All right, guys, look, you can call me a shill if you want to. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to leave this all on the table for you to evaluate. Any technical person would know what I'm giving you is 100% truth here. I'm a guy that actually can tell you how wireless companies think. I was the engineer that would have been the guy that would have said, like, I don't want this thing on my network. Is there something we can do about it if I determined that there was something seriously wrong with the phone? Okay. And that's the problem with a lot of these products. There is something very, very wrong with them. All right. So, talking that through a little bit, the what do you want to call it? The with the Freedom Phone. Okay, sorry guys, somebody's like playing some like incredible bass all around me right now, and it's like really jamming my ability to think. I apologize. I'm sitting here like going, what am I talking about? Even it's like going, dun, 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 dun. Sorry guys. So all right. Hang on really quick. All right. So the wireless companies, there's a high potential for there to be a ban on this product. And I'm just letting you guys understand that. That would be my personal intuition. And that if you're going to get into something like this, I need you to understand why a good, solid American decision would be made to create a ban on a piece of hardware from China. That's all, guys. Now, if you want to point out that it's hypocritical because there's already exploits that exist within the iPhone and these Samsung products, touche. And I'm not going to disagree with you on all of the above. All right. I'm just being fair with you guys. I'm letting you understand that if you're suspect of this data, it's just giving you a heads up on what could potentially happen. All right. I just don't want to see a lot of people throw away $500 when it, on something that might wind up. That's all, guys. Again, it's entirely up to you. And if you've got money to spare and you want to see how it is, I would just say that don't put sensitive information on it right away and don't immediately think that it's free. You need to start thinking ahead a little bit, like what exploits could exist, because this is a cheap Chinese knockoff. I don't have any guarantees that the company that bought all these Chinese knockoff phones are going to remove a lot of the hardware exploits or the ability to exploit the firmware within the hardware. And again, that's what you really got to think about, guys. These phones can have all sorts of backdoor exploits that you're completely unaware of. That's all. That's it, So, yeah. So some people say they've been seeing some IT people criticizing this iPhone on Twitter, and they say, yeah. And so that's all I'm doing is I'm offering a little bit of extra data to support that. That's it. Hang on really quick. Yeah, I just wanted to offer just that little bit of extra data to support it. That's all. And not because I have the same necessarily, to me, I'm not rolling on the floor laughing about how stupid the whole thing is. I feel bad because it's there's so many nuances to why this is a bad idea the way it's being done. All right. Now, if you want to do the rolling on the floor laughing thing, I guess we could talk about the founder of the whole product and why everybody would think that this is a good idea just because it comes from a young Bitcoin billionaire with a really fake sounding name, with a fake sounding history, and who seems like he's just been put out there like the new Elon Musk to be the puppet character behind all sorts of businesses and ideas and concepts that a certain group would love to control and get you to believe is the next thing that's going to be the opposing force of whatever. Again, guys, always in their sandbox, always, they trick you into thinking that it's really something that it's not. That's all I think it is. I don't think this is going to make you any freer. But if you think that gaining access to Parler and all those apps through the App Store and having that guaranteed access to the App Store is worth all of the other security risks. That's all I'm explaining to you. That's your benefit. So in fairness to the people behind the concept and those who are the believers and those who are selling it, that's your core point. You've got a great point there. I'm not going to dispute that. If there's one benefit to this, it's that you've simply modified the operating system to be called Freedom OS, and you're going to modify the Google App Store to be a Freedom App Store, and you're going to modify the operating system to not restrict things of this nature. I'm just explaining to you guys is that when you remove yourself, though, from the official support of the Google whatever, you're relying entirely upon the world's youngest Bitcoin billionaire to be your tech support and to make good decisions for you. And I can already tell you from the appearance of the website, which is painfully cheap, which looks horrible. It just doesn't look like anybody's even taking this seriously. It looks like what it is. It looks like there's some like group of like a few people that are buying a whole bunch of these things in some big wholesale warehouse. And they're going to have like thousands and thousands of these cheap Chinese knockoff phones and boxes that nobody can sell anywhere in the world because they're banned from so many networks. And then they're going to roll them out there and go, Freedom Phone, and get a whole bunch of people to spend $500 on them, only to find out that eventually these things are going to be yanked off the network and they're not going to work. And then they're going to say like, we're going to get you hacks, and we're going to get you back in, and we're going to get you another one. And it's going to be this big cat and mouse game that I'm dreading it already, guys. And just letting you know I told you so, but I don't mean to say it in an obnoxious way. I'm just letting you know, guys, the signs are all there, but that's all right. You know, what is the better options, though? People just got to get smarter, you know. I think, honestly, if you really want to remove yourself from all of it, it's just to remove yourself from smartphone technology and go back to feature phones as much as you can and use, like tablets and pads on an as-needed basis with a hotspot. And stop obsessing over having something that's like a data link all the time, everywhere you go to every single thing, because that's really unnatural. And if you think it's not affecting your perception of reality, I would say that you're very mistaken. It's completely changing the way people perceive reality. It's a constant loop of, I would argue, negative programming that's there and designed, I think, a little bit to frustrate us and aggravate us and keep us into an energy cycle of frustration. And so I just don't want to see people buy into another one. That's all, guys. And if I'm wrong about it and there's a reason why, then I will get back on here just as fast and tell you guys about all the things that I was wrong about relative to this concept, because I really do try to be fair. So with these things. So, hey, welcome, Lisa. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, this to me, I felt like, because I've got a lot of wireless industry experience, I should be chiming in on some of these latest things that have been going on. And I thought the Freedom Phone especially was one that I should definitely comment on with what I know, okay? And then, I can give you guys some articles like the ARS Tech. These aren't, a lot of these articles, guys, are kind of just there to like, I think, troll people a little bit. But personally, like, I'm completely suspect of all this history of this alleged inventor of these things. I mean, there's just something that's way too comic book nonsense about this. Like, hey, guys, I'm pro-America. I'm the world's youngest Bitcoin billionaire. Hey, I got the Freedom Phone. Guys, I think if this guy were serious about what he was doing, he would have put a lot more resources into it. That's all. You should see specs. You should see technical specs of the phone. They should at least be copying and pasting the Umadigi technical specs, and then just everywhere it says Android OS, put Freedom OS. Everywhere it says what are the app stores, preloaded on the phone, you just replace all that, cut and paste. I mean, it couldn't be easier. You guys didn't think to like at least give yourself a really good interface on your website before you roll this out and had all of your different conservative commentators put their reputations on the line for you? Because I'm just wondering, are you guys that like are sponsoring it? From my perspective, these are the kind of confidence games that make you look like you're phony. It's designed to make you who are legit look phony. And so again, I don't think that you're phony. I'm saying that when they get you to buy into a concept like this, it's a bait and switch trap that's going to chip away at people's confidence in you. And so I'm asking you guys just to be a little bit aware of that. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I do. And if I am, I'll apologize, but this one really, really looks bad. That's all. Just look deeper into the history and everything like that on this alleged, hailing from the United States, Eric Finman. Financial, Ericsson, I don't know. Finman. Born in 1999, he's a 22-year-old Bitcoin billionaire. Well, yeah, no, dude. Maybe consult with somebody on how to do this better. Because if you're a billionaire, you should have had the capital to do it way better than this. The way this is all set up, guys, this is, honestly, this Freedom Phone is done like I came up with. No, I did not, by the way. But what they're doing with this idea, any idiot could have come up with in a warehouse. And like, it's the kind of thing, like if you're expecting some huge storefront that says Freedom Phone. No, it's going to be more like a P.O. box in a warehouse where a whole bunch of this crap's in there. There's going to be a few people that are going to be like sending these things out and then like preloading this Freedom OS with these cables, opening the boxes, putting the software in, opening the boxes, putting the software and opening the boxes. And that's what all the, that's what all the labor is for. Like they're probably getting them for under $100. And then this OS is barely a modification. You could have paid somebody like next to nothing to make this mod. And then what I'm wondering is what kind of software support and OS support are you really going to get in the future? I don't know. Who's going to sustain that marketplace? Who's really going to support the OS? If it's an operating system, something has to support it. If it's free, the product is you, like they say. Yeah, it looks like a 2012 Bill Gates. That's what Lisa says. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, yeah. It's like they just keep making these characters up to be the representatives of the other people's ecosystems. I don't even think, honestly, I just don't believe these things. I just don't think this is a real thing. Yeah, there's a guy out there that's walking around showing up at Bitcoin conferences, but like they make these people what they are. If they weren't doing the bidding of the larger whatever, this concept wouldn't even be inside your perception right now. You wouldn't even know what the Freedom Phone is if this guy wasn't playing ball. That's all. So I just don't believe it. And then if you go to the website, guys, I mean, this is it right here. I mean, see what you find there. Here it is. You go to Freedom Phone. You just click on the main thing, home. And what do you have for an interface? I mean, there's nothing that really tells you anything more than just buy it. It's Freedom America. This reminds me of like, Team America, World Police. America! Yeah! I mean, that's all it is. It's just like, hey, you see an American flag, right? You're patriotic. It's free. Okay, the Freedom Phone is a free speech and privacy first focused phone with features like tracking blockers and an uncensorable app store. Again, it's exactly like what they do with Amazon's Fire OS. It's modified Android. That's it. Works with Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and all other domestic international carriers. Moves phones over in 60 seconds as soon as the phone arrives. All I'm telling you guys is I have a very strong suspicion that look here, it's ripe to get like SIM, whatever you want to call it. Like they have a way where they can just cluster the companies. They can just say that because the manufacturer registers in the system. So if you try to like put one of these phones on their network, it could detect it. And if it sees a bunch of these causing problems on the network, they're going to ban it. And so if these phones have any issues hardware wise, I'm just telling you, like the wireless companies, they're not, and then they're going to turn into these like viruses that are out there, these hardware virus phones that don't function properly. To me, this whole thing feels like it's designed to create a lot more confusion and a lot more strife between like the wireless carriers relative to the population, relative to the people in the tech companies that are trying to like keep us in this trap. Honestly, guys, it really does feel like it's designed to implode. So I praise any legitimate efforts to give a more open source app store. And if that's what this is, then hoorah. I apologize if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I think it's a trap. That's all. And it's going to be one of those things where no one's going to feel sorry for you guys, because most of the people in those tech companies that are at the engineering level are pretty liberal, just being real with you. Not all of them, but most. More often than not, they're pretty liberal people. So banning your precious Freedom Phone to them is going to be like a non-decision. The second it shows signs that it's a problem on the network, it's going to be like, pull it off, making sure no one can activate them. That's all. It's an opinion that I have. It doesn't mean it could happen or will happen, but I think the probability is at least there. And then they're going to get you guys to be in this like little debate back and forth over, did the wireless companies censor you? Are they censoring the Freedom Phone? Guys, there's all sorts of reasons that have nothing to do with censorship as to why they would do it, just by virtue of it being cheap and not approved to be on their network. Number one, then where you have a point, if you think it's censorship, here's where you have a legitimate point. then they can just use that as like a quick doorway to go like, we don't like it anyways. And as long as it hasn't been approved and we have any slight reason to take it off of our network, we're going to do it. Okay. Just being real with you. So just be prepared for that, because I think it's garbage. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a little bit worried that I'm a little bit worried that it is kind of like, it's not really what it's there to say it is. That's all. All right. Yeah, and I agree, guys. I mean, this really is another, like, it's another game on conservatives, guys. Again, I'm being straight up with you. Like, on some of my Twitter content lately, I know people can be suspicious of my information because I have been pretty historically liberal. And, I do have more, look, my taste in music and the bands that I've always been into and everything like that, they've always had left-leaning perspectives and values. And so, yeah, the last couple of years, I've been kind of challenged internally about, like, my cultural heroes relative to my personal opinions because of what I know. I can't deny what I know and just suddenly say that, like, I accept everything that comes from liberal perspectives, line and sinker. I mean, I can't do that, guys. They're just dead wrong on so many things lately, especially when it comes to judging people that are conservative and putting them into a box of, like, judgment. And they really are on the attack, guys. That's all I can tell you. It's a very coordinated attack because conservatism within America represents, I guess you could say, a greater honor of our Constitution and a stronger, well, conservatism by definition, the way I was taught, was that conservatives take a conservative approach regarding the Constitution, and the changing of it was what I was told. That's the way I was taught from childhood about what it should be, and that liberals merely had a more flexible perspective on how they perceived the changing of our Constitution as our society adapts, right, to the current conditions. Again, conservatives being more like, if we don't hold on to these principles, we lose something very critical in our country that makes us America. Liberals having the perspective of, yes, we understand this is America. However, if we don't adapt to current conditions and times relative to, whatever the core values were. See, that's the values that I took as a liberal. I thought, well, conservatives, I appreciate them, but I don't agree with them, was how I felt before. You understand that? Like, I could see the value in there being a group of people that need to be respected and needed to be held in the same regard as everyone else, that felt very strongly about the Constitution not being changed, even if that's different than me. Because I felt like, and I still feel like this, I still want there to be a balance of these perspectives, because people who don't want to make any changes at all, obviously they're kind of in a box of whatever, right? We can't change zero parts of it because society does change. We have technology that starts to become a thing. It's not the press anymore. It's not just written words. So if we don't have a constitution that's at least adapted to these modern conditions, that, whatever, but it must maintain the conservative principles of what we were founded on. And this is the problem with liberalism, is that it's really gone so far off course from what makes us America that it's not making modifications. It's not saying that I want to change this or that slightly. It literally completely changes the makeup of America to where we're no longer what it is, which is why even when I took the left perspective, I always maintained a strong respect for conservatives, a strong respect for the right. And yeah, I goofed on them. I made jokes and things like that, whatever. But there was respect there. There was decorum. There was still the ability for me to reach out and have discussions back and forth. And so when I felt like people back then were saying that they were under attack, I didn't see it. I didn't really get it. I think you guys are kind of making a mountain out of a molehill. But now, the last 4 years in particular, there's been no question in my mind that there is an absolute attack on conservatism, and the people that feel this way about our country, that are more patriotic in nature, they're absolutely under attack. They're absolutely having their values chipped away at. And it's striking at the core, I think, of just what makes us human, not just American. I think what these people do is so anti-human. That's why you should just forget about conservative or liberal or anything and just ask yourself, what feels human? What feels like it's life-affirming? Because what these people are doing is really not liberal. It's just anti-life, and it's just putting us into a reversal cycle at a very, how else do I put it, guys? I mean, to me, this all feels like it's another setup, guys. Sorry to deviate from the core topic, but the technology things, it really does feel like it's another setup to get you to fight for a product that is going to actually be a greater problem for you and give more access to the wrong people to you via hardware hacks. This is probably about the easiest thing in the world for a amateur or professional hacker to get into at a hardware level. That's all I'm telling you guys. It would be more challenging for them to get into iPhones, even though they're more common. This thing, I think, would be no problem. If they were a real good expert and they could get into core code, firmware, settings, and things like that, there's no support for these things. That's why they're easy to hack. At least, even if there's more distribution, see, what you're always looking at with these things when you're thinking about security is the level of distribution relative to how worth it is it for a hacker to attack it. I would say that what you got with this is the perfect storm of limited distribution, but optimum incentive for the wrong parties across the board, everywhere, whether they're just leftist, demonstrators that have more hacking ability, or the companies that don't like you. I think this is a greater exploit using this than even staying with the standard things, guys. But if you want to give it a try and find out on your own, I am not going to say that you're a dummy or whatever else like that. It's just simply to say that I think there's better things you could spend your money on. And I think there's other ways that you could find that you could access everything that you're looking to access if you could just change the way you look at your phone, or the way you use your phone, whatever. For example, if you want to mimic what this does, you really can just get a tablet, okay, and then go onto the websites or use custom app designs or use customized forms of Android that are hackable already. There's all kinds of people that have created these types of like portals to where you can like add an application to your Android device, especially without having to go through the official store. Now, it lacks security and it opens you up to hacking, but so does this. And so that's the problem, guys. Anytime you deviate away from the core store, you don't have the same support. You're going off the reservation. So you have to have more knowledge about what you're doing or trust the people who are doing it for you. Do you trust the team behind Freedom OS? Do you have a storefront you can go to? Do you feel strong that these people are actually on your side? Because you should, because you're trusting them with your emails, your phone numbers, your contacts, everything. Think about it. Don't just go like, yes, shiny. That's all. Just, and I'm happy to help. All right, let's talk about Pegasus. I'm glad you mentioned that. All right. Guys, I don't have a lot to share on this Pegasus exploit, except to say that I do believe this is pretty widespread and common. And let me explain to you what I've observed. And I've been reporting, and I was trying to even tell the FBI about this. I do think I'm on a record as doing it, maybe even in front of one of their cameras. Interesting, guys. It's just so inconvenient the way I report things to the FBI when I do it sometimes live on YouTube in front of their security cameras. Kind of makes it hard for them to ignore that Gabe told them so, doesn't it? Anyways, speaking of the Pegasus hack, yeah, I've been talking about this shit going on over a year. And they did nothing. Hi, Nevada FBI. Remember when you did nothing and I was telling you about this? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was you. Yeah, you too, Portland FBI. All these times I've been telling you about how this is working, and yeah. Gabriel, please go to the Starbucks and upload that on their very lacking security public Wi-Fi to our very lacking security IC3.gov database. They'll tell you to go to ic3.gov, which is a joke. You're just basically uploading your information into a black hole of, I didn't see that. It's kind of like reporting things right to their face. I didn't see that. I'm sorry, that's not going to make for a good episode of Law and Order or whatever. I mean, like everything that they're doing is basically making up episodes of Law and Order that they present to you as crime and, crime and punishment within America, as if that's what's happening. And it's just not. It's a big high five partnership between them and mass media, all to basically just keep the criminals in control, which the FBI appears to be managing. Guys, you know what? If you really want to know how this is working, maybe watch The Departed if you haven't seen it in a while. If you've never seen Martin Scorsese's The Departed, it has Jack Nicholson as the head of the Irish mafia in Boston. And it really does give you some pretty brilliant insights into, sorry guys, there may be some spoilers in this conversation. If so, then I don't know. By now you must know that I'm a bad channel to watch because I'm just going to tell you what happens. But I'll just put it this way without saying too much. It's revealed within the film Departed that at the end of the day, whoever you think the FBI is chasing is more than likely their big informant, and that it doesn't work like you think it does. They're there being managed by the FBI, not really chased and not really being reviewed. It's voluntary surveillance by the person that's put in charge of the economy of whatever's going on there. Drugs, prostitution, gun running, money laundering, gambling on the side, whatever it is. Yeah, it's just being managed. And then they do recruit all of these doe-eyed, like, I want to do something good. I'm going to get into law enforcement. I'm going to be into, I'm going to get my, what do you call it? My criminal justice degree and everything else like that. I'm going to get into, crime solving and everything. And they want all of those really pure-minded people to join and immediately feel dispirited and like they're in a machine and that nothing's really getting done, or be tricked into thinking that they're actually following real cases, which are probably about as realistic to some of the low-end people as they are to the rest of America. Please understand that, because I reach out, guys, I have seen that there's people at the FBI, as much as I'm cynical about them, I know there's people there that have been in part of like near some of these like deceptions where they're kind of going, you see them in the background looking like, I can't do this. I hate myself. And, hey, for those of you who are in a position like that, I'm a good person to be friends with. I'll put it that way, because I get it. There's so many ways that they get you to believe things just as much as the rest of us, because at a high level, there's these people that are just creating fictions, crisis actor staffed fictions. They literally are creating falsified news stories by making them a live action role play that actually manifests into something semi-real. We set them up, Hollywood sets it up, script is cast, the bad guys are there, and then the FBI has their predictable case that they can swoop in, catch them, put them in the privately run prison where they're just going to probably get facial reconstruction, or just go into some staircase underground and go out some other tunnel. You guys actually believe El Chapo was a real person? MS-13 and all that's managed by the FBI. The technology that exists nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, makes crime nearly impossible to get away with, yet let alone plan. And the level of surveillance that the people that I'm currently aware have, and how deep it goes into our infrastructure, they have complete awareness. Everything. There is not a single illicit file of the exploitation of a child, or the purchase of a human, or the large like transaction of a big monetary, of cryptocurrency, of guns or drugs or people, or any of these things that could happen electronically. It is zero possibility of them occurring without the participation or direct knowledge of certain companies, organizations, and surveillance agencies that simply just watch it all go down while they manage it. Why? Why? That's really what we got to get down to in our country, guys. Forget what you think you are, left, right, any of this crap. I mean, really, guys, really. Forget it. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's just that it's a huge, huge deception for us to buy into. And these technology or things that I'm exposing here, or just trying to discuss at a deeper level, are a big part of it. Is part of why I try to tell you that both, it's like that song, like, guys, I love the film Magnolia, right? And it's because there's this beautiful, it says the best about the way the human heart works, and the way we can interpret things, and the way we can change something dark into something light almost immediately just through a simple interpretation of a word. But there's this line in the film and towards the middle of it that's very emotional, where they keep saying, it's not going to stop, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop, so just give up. And I know I say it that way. And if you don't hear the woman, you know, Amy Mann singing the words and you don't hear the entire song, what I just said to you sounds defeatist. And within the context of the film, though, it's not. And I say that with technology. It's like when it comes to these hacks, with the way we have everything now, it's not going to stop. So what are you going to do? As long as you have phones that do all the things that these phones do, there's always going to be something like this. So now what? You know, and now is just the point where you're just going to have to decide, do you want to keep going down this path? Because if you care about, quote, security, it's never going to be there. It's always going to be illusory. That's all I'm telling you. So to concern yourself overly with it, to always be thinking and obsessing about it the way some people would or could, that's not my role here. I'm not doing this to be like going like, now what are you going to do? I'm not, it's not menacing. I mean, to say that maybe what we should be doing now in this day and age is being our holiest, not holiest, but our wholest 100% purest self. Be who you are, unapologetically within reason. And don't worry about what anybody thinks anymore, because it's all known. It is. And in the background, it's all known. And that's why there's so much efforts to cloud that all up, to make it all a big mess of what's true versus what's not true. And again, that's another thing. It's a little bit almost like you could obsess over that in any number of ways. You could be thinking about that tangibly in daily life. Who's rumoring about me? Like if you're a celebrity, you may think about those things a lot, especially. Like, are these people talking smack about me? How come all these people on social media hate me? You know, this obsession that we've had with these things that keep us in these negativity loops, and then fighting for our right to interface with them in the way that we feel is the most purest to our ideology that is being fed to us by what? The same devices, by the same people, put through the same information systems. At the end of the day, this phone is going to connect to the same networks. It's going to have all the same ability to get to websites as anything else that you have. I'm just saying that I think you're going to be adding an extra $400 to some $100 onto it to get a custom OS that may or may not be supported in the future. So think that through a little bit, you know. But yeah, there you go. Whole, yes, Lisa, holy and whole and unapologetic. Yeah, I mean, really, folks, really, I think that's it. Just, you know, now, because what they want us to do is part of this negative energy loop. It involves the technology, and it involves the fear of being perceived a certain way. It's the fear of being, I don't know. A lot of it is fear of how we're perceived, you know, an obsession of our appearances, an obsession about how we're thought of relative to this machine that's constantly sending us signals from all across the world that are random and unknown of origin, that sometimes tell us that we're horrible, or that we should think something bad, or that we shouldn't like a person right next to us that we love. It's weird how it creates those problems so frequently. I've just seen it too many times to where I just like, I want less and less to engage with the technology on a day-to-day basis. That's part of why I just haven't been on here as much lately. It's really been a large technology break where I'm just focusing more of my time on other aspects of research that deal more with timelines and radionics and less this type of thing directly. By that, hang on. So when I say radionics, I mean to say that I've been doing more like controlled tests with devices that involve these types of inputs and like signal generators like these, and using like spooky devices, and then things that I think are more esoteric in nature. But for me, they're more like if you guys were know, like the things that I was doing like over the last 2 months have been more about Preston Nichols and timeline research. That's kind of what I'm in deep with right now. Because I'm thinking more in terms of what can we change within the biofield through positive intention and through the manifestation of things through radionic links, because they don't honor timelines. When you're dealing with radionics, you can do things that transcend timelines, is what I've been learning. And so I'm going to talk about some weird technology things. Little off topic today, guys, but if you're wondering why I don't talk as much about this and why I'm not on like every day, yeah, I'm discovering some really strange things, and a lot of it is geography related, as far as like events that occur within certain locations relative to how they synchronize with things from the past. I'll give you a good example. The series Outer Limits, for example, there's a science fiction series, The Outer Limits. It's a lot like, it's more of a science fiction horror form of the Twilight Zone concept, like a weekly anthology or just an hour-long episode where it's like the first episode involves a radio transmitter tower where the guy starts to, it's called the Galaxy Beam, TGB, and I always thought it was really weird because they used, GB over and over again inside this episode where this guy makes contact with an alien through a radio tower. My name's Gabe, so when I see GB, it just like makes me go, what's going on? Not an alien. But it's an interesting episode, guys. If you're ever curious, you might want to watch The Outer Limits. It's on this channel called Pluto for free. That's the only place I could find it available for free on streaming. But episode 1, season 1, is just this episode about a guy that over amplifies a radio transmitter, and then he puts a series of electromagnetic manipulated fields into this controlled box where the receiver of it is going into this box, and it's like dimensional. The way that he has the frequencies lined up is very dimensional. So he's creating a waveform that if there's any interruption in it, it'll create a disruption in the visual field of the electromagnetics, and he'll be able to see something in the box. And he won't talk to anybody. He's been sitting in this radio station. He's like, he owns a radio station and he has a radio station transmitter. This is all back in the 60s. And he starts to like amplify the signal and starts to contact, an interdimensional being that explains that everything is energy and that they're not allowed to communicate with Earth because of the way that we manipulate energy to create destruction, and that he even tells the guy that your brain waves are infinity, that it's a representation of energy, and that your brain waves never dissipate as humans, and that we will receive them. It's really interesting, guys. Like, I mean, it doesn't even come across as science fiction. It almost feels like when you're listening to these, like the way that the series pans out, it's like disclosure. So it's just things like that I've been kind of following some of the breadcrumb trails, and then like actually delving deeper into the topics or the locations or the synchronicities that occur. And it's really strange how else do I put it, guys? A lot of the articles that I did while I was in California and in Nevada that were connected to Hollywood connections, I never watched Outer Limits. I wasn't a fan of it. I didn't watch it until just the last couple months, okay, through the suggestion of a friend. And now it's been like this really, really intense synchronicity to things that I just did a few months ago with some very strange locations. For example, in one episode of The Outer Limits, they even referenced the Chemosphere building. And if you guys might remember, while I was in California, I was visiting quite a few Hollywood connections. And so there's one episode of The Outer Limits where there's a guy with an Irish accent, and he has one eye covered like this. He wears like, it's set in the future, and he covers up his, like, has this weird hat with one eye covered. And I'm like, I recognize that actor. I recognize him. He was in the movie My Chauffeur, which is this really low budget kind of TNA movie from the 80s starring Deborah Foreman, where she's a chauffeur for a chauffeur company that's recruited because the owner knows something about her and is trying to keep her close to him because he knows who her real mother is. And this all gets revealed in the plot. Sorry, guys, on the spoilers again, but I did an article about that because they gave out a real address in the film My Chauffeur. Again, it's from 1986. This other one's from 1963. And it's weird how the actor that plays the Irishman that recruits the girl in My Chauffeur is in the episode of Outer Limits that takes place in the Chemosphere, and he lives inside it. The same day I did an article about the movie My Chauffeur, that location is the same day I did an article in California about the Chemosphere, and I've never seen Outer Limits until just recently. Never. And what makes it even stranger is I didn't know until, and maybe I might have come across the data before but didn't follow through on watching it. I also learned that the actor who's connected to some other things I've studied, Henry Silva. And again, guys, I have Silva in my bloodline through my father's side. Henry Silva's in like a few episodes of Outer Limits. There's not that many actors that do repeats on that series, and he's one of them. Robert Culp is another. You might remember him as working with Bill Cosby and I Spy. And he also played the sidekick in The Greatest American Hero that was in the 80s. So Robert Culp is in quite a few of their iconic episodes along with Henry Silva, which I thought was also really interesting. And then I just kept on observing that a number of the actors in Outer Limits, they look familiar. I'm going way off topic, guys. I apologize, but I did cover some of these other things really quickly, though. But I'll get back into Pegasus here. I apologize. But just so you guys know, if I've been a little bit off topic or whatever, and I haven't been going, whatever, it's just because things like this happen. And then I find all these different connections where I'm learning that things, just one thing connects to another thing connects to another thing in a synchronous pattern that I feel like was timeline related. Like people were saying they knew which ones were going to be watched in which order and were observing from another timeline. And so this has happened to me before. And if I don't follow through on that, I regret it later. And so I've been following through on kind of following a little bit of the breadcrumb rabbit trail without letting it become kind of an obsession. But it's very similar to what I experienced when I was having the Ka Codex go on about 5 years ago. If you're familiar with me through the Basis Project, I'd interviewed with Miles Johnston about this topic where I kind of got like a download of information, and it was really intense and it was lasting for a few weeks. Something kind of similar has been going on to this location that I've been in the last couple months. It's that things happen here that I was just going to investigate it kind of at that level to begin with. But when you're immersed in the environment of what's going on, it's like there's something geomagnetically that's going on here with the way it binds to information. It's very similar to what I observed in some of the other locations that I followed this trail on. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of more energy measurements to sort of demonstrate the connection between how information binds to a location, but that won't be probably put out for a while. And I still need to do some soil measurements anyways and things like that. But rest assured, there's definitely something strange going on with information binding. So just thought I'd throw that out there, folks. If you're doing sort of like timeline research things, you may find Outer Limits, the original series from the 60s. Okay, this would have started in 1963. You may want to at least look into that first episode, season 1, episode 1, called The Galaxy Bean, just to see if the information resonates with you as true. And I think you're going to find that series, the plot lines, as much as they seem like science fiction, to me, it really seems like what this series was truly doing was giving us warnings about things that they had sort of foreseen and wanted to give us a little bit of like a heads up to tell us like this could happen. And here's all the reasons why you should take it seriously, because it will synchronize if it's meant for you to see it. Weird. Not trying to take away from the legitimacy of this material, guys, because I know I do a lot of strange things, but it's just because I understand a lot more about radio frequency and electromagnetics relative to concepts like this, for example, to know that it's a real thing that exists. You can do some strange things with space-time manipulation, and just if you're not going to take it from a person that has 20 years of radio frequency experience, then I don't know what to tell you guys. All right, let's get to Pegasus though, because I want to talk in a little bit more detail about what I learned about that last year. So I was experiencing some significant hacking for, I'd say, I discovered like the majority of this, like what I think is a Pegasus related hack, I'd say in like late to mid 2019. It might have happened before that, but what I observed was this iMessage exploit. And here's what I think is going on. I think if this has happened to you, and again, I can't tell you this for certain because I haven't actually downloaded the tool to check my phone for this yet, but I plan to do that at some point if I can. It's drive space is my limitation on whether or not I can do that, just because I have so much on my iPhone. And I think this requires that you back up your entire iPhone image separate. and then it like guts it all and does like this scrub or deep detect on your phone or whatever, and then I think it puts it back on or something like that. I'm not sure how it works entirely, but there is a tool, I guess, to detect if you have the Pegasus hack on your phone. But really quickly though, what I observed was I was doing gig-based application work, so which is to say that I was earning my money through phone applications where you do a task for whatever company. There's many that have different things like this. Some are straight like gigs that you can just like, for example, you can put down there that your expertise is fixing iPhones, for example, and then people can just find you on this app and say, hey, will you fix my iPhone, this, and this? I have all the parts, will you assemble it for me for $100? And then you could say, yeah, I'll take that gig. And then all the contract is written through the phone app, and then you get sent to you, the job gets sent to you. You go to the person's address, you do the job, they say, I approve, you instantly get paid, you go on your way. There's other forms of that. For example, like, well, you're familiar with things like Uber. Those are gig-based apps, where your job is done through the application. There's services like Postmates and DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats and things like that also. Those are also forms of what are called gig apps. All right. What I observed when using a whole series of gig apps was this exploit is just in everything. And it seems like it's a backdoor they can siphon money off. That's the part that I don't think that they're talking about as much. But that's what it's used for oftentimes, is do some more sophisticated money laundering and also just thievery at a very insignificant level to the average person. But I think when you're doing it to like tons of people globally, yeah, if you're just stealing 10 cents here and $1 there and $2 here and $1 there, and you're doing it globally to millions of people every day, you're probably making globally millions every day. Okay. So I think that that's what's being a little bit not fully disclosed about this hack. They're making it seem more like it's about reading emails, which it is, I think, and about reading text messages, which it is. But I would say that you should also be concerned about everything else. Like, you may have been stolen from. There may have been ways of siphoning off by adding percentages to transactions on things that you wouldn't even be conscious and aware of. It's easy to do on things like Amazon, adding 10%. I mean, if the item that you're going to buy is $10 and they make it, $10.90, for example, or something like that, it's going to be something that the average person, if they're already buying it, they're probably not going to notice the 90 cents added onto it. And that may have been added on purely by the people doing this. It may have just been like a quick little there to then they're going to take it off when it gets intercepted through them and Amazon, through you and Amazon. So that was the kind of hacks that I was finding, except that they were doing it to the gig apps, to where I was observing that I should have had amounts that did not come to a perfect 0 or 0.25, but they weren't. Meaning to say, like, I should have got paid like, I don't know, $12.34, for example. That would have been like one thing I could have gotten paid, right? That would have been like a normal, uneven amount. But instead of having like a series of ones that are like $12.34 or $34.56 or $56.78, I'm not doing that on purpose, guys. I am. I'm just giving you oddball numbers that are not even. And so instead of getting like that kind of amounts for payment, I would always get even dollars. So it'd be like an even $10, an even $7, an even $7.25. It was never $7.34. It was never $7.35, $7.36, $7.37, $7.38. It was always either $7, $7.25, $7.50, $7.75. And I think that that's how they were doing it. As close as they could get to your transaction and siphon off that little extra, they do to as many people as possible whenever they have this exploit installed. And I think that this is very global in nature, and that there's a lot of people that have this combined with things like Cobb Ham hacks, where they put you onto a private server where you're running through their phones. I've talked about these things at length in other presentations about smartphone hacks, and you can go back and look at those presentations if you want to, or I can play them here. But that's just another method for them to do it. And so the way it manifested on my phone, sorry, short story long, was that when I went into certain environments where this hack seemed to be able to be auto-populated, it's like you must pass through something that pushes you off of a normal cell tower and onto the device of, or a repeater or network extender or some local device that spoofs your phone into thinking that it's an actual cell phone tower from your cell phone company, when in all actuality, you're being intercepted through something else before it goes to the cell tower. And then they can do things like backdoor your applications, read your text messages, read your emails, etc. And so that's why I kind of get to the point, guys. It's like the way I observed this was happening, and I already knew that it was going on to me, and I could tell when somebody had done it to me, is I would go from, like on an iPhone, if you're just receiving text messages through the normal text network, the arrow before you go to send your messages will be green. So like you'll type your message, you'll receive your messages in green, and you'll send them with the green cloud around it. When you're on iMessage, the way that Apple notifies you that you're using the iMessage service and then on a different type of network is your messages won't be on a green border with a green background. It'll be a blue border with a blue background. That's what iMessage does. So what I observe is when somebody does this to my phone is I will immediately notice that my text messages, even though I have iMessage turned off and disabled, suddenly it is auto turned on. Yet, if I go into my settings menu, it shows my iMessage is turned off. But the blue indicator on my messages is turned on, even if I wasn't using iMessage with anybody anytime recently. Because honestly, the last couple months is the only time I've even enabled iMessage in recent memory. Prior to that, I never would use it because I had a reason why. My personal reason why was that I wanted my text messages to be processed, not just through the smartphone software on the data network, but I wanted to actually go through like the packet switch and the phone network. And I wanted the text messages to be split up text-wise when I sent them out. And I've observed it since this hack has begun that, yeah, that never happens the way that it used to. And it seems like they have it set up for everything to be a spoof of iMessage where your messages go through them and it looks like it got texted out, but it didn't. How do I know that? My way of testing it is to send an overlong text message to myself with a bunch of information in it. And then if it doesn't split the message up and send them green and send them back to me green, so transmit and receive, I should get them on an iPhone with a green cloud around it. If it ever switches to blue and I've never turned on iMessage, then I know I've been hacked, or that hack is active on my phone. And the only way I ever figured out how to shake it off is to constantly cycle my phone into airplane mode after I've left the environment where it happened. And then I go into my message, my iMessage or my text message settings on my iPhone. I observe that it's always off. iMessage is never on, even though it shows the blue color on my message. I'll just quickly turn it on, turn it off, to where it's disabled. Then I go back into my text messaging software and I'm back to the green cloud around all my messages. So if it's not some kind of hack, riddle me this, Riddler. Why does that happen to me so frequently? And why can I actually trace it to specific environments? I'll give you an example, guys. I won't mince words. This happened to me every single time I went into a mini mall that was next to the National Guard Armory in Henderson, Nevada. I spent a lot of time in Las Vegas in the Henderson area. And one of the areas that I was doing quite a bit of delivery work was near the Horizon Ridge Parkway area. And so there's a mini mall there that has like a Vons grocery store, and there's like a Chinese restaurant, there's a Cold Stone Creamery, and there's Cafe Rio, and there's like a Buffalo Wild Wings, all in this mini mall out there, okay? And it's really on the outskirts of Las Vegas, Henderson. It's like one of the last exits you take before you get out of town. And every time I would go into one of these little strip mall areas that was close to the Cafe Rio especially, if I ever went inside Cafe Rio, every time like clockwork, this text hack would happen to my phone. I would be green going in, and then all I did was like maybe look, like not even like my phone would go like, turn the screen off for a second. I look at it again and suddenly I'm on blue. Never enabled iMessage, nothing, anything like that. But it's as if the whole intention of this is to trap the text message into a spoof of iMessage while tricking your phone into thinking that it's on the regular text network. To a person who always uses iMessage, you would never even know this is happening to you. I'm a person that never uses iMessage, and I think that I'm probably rare. I think that most people who have an iPhone enable iMessage because they like all the cool features you can do with iMessage that you can't do with regular text. And they don't like to see their text messages split up over several things when they communicate something really long. Whereas with me, I do that intentionally because I'm testing the different types of networks that I'm using to see if it splits the text message up, especially if I'm on a 3G network, which pretty much every single time, if I remember correctly, you should never get your text messages in like anything but like 100 and some character clusters. I can't remember what the exact number is, but we'll always divide them up. So if it's not dividing them up, that's usually been my test. I'll switch the phone to 3G, see if it divides it up into clusters when I text the message out. And if it doesn't, then I know something's being changed to make me think that I'm on a network that I'm not, or I'm on a service that I'm not. What I can do about it from there, your guess is as good as mine, folks, but I'm just good at finding these things, and I'm good at like knowing when it's weird and anomalous, and I can go to you like, yeah, that's something that I've seen before, and it is weird. What the fix is as far as the scanning goes, that'll have to look deeper in, and if I can and I have the resources to, I will dig deeper into that, because I would really like to see if I have this this exact exploit on my phone. But if what I just described to you is not Pegasus, it's some variation that works very similarly and does something like that. But the only reason why I haven't done more to fix it in my case is just because it's just going to happen all over again. And I say that to everybody. It's like, you know, I say, this is why I've taken the position of, you know, it's not going to stop, so just give up. I don't give up. I'm still here talking to you. I'm still here telling you about these things, that they're possible, that this is how they work and this is how they would. But I don't want any of you to get stressed over it. I just want you to be authentically yourselves and to know that quite a few of us will just try to create, as much as I can create an environment for you to make being who you are as your authentic self safe. That's what I'm looking for, because most of the people that I know are good, decent people, and I want them to be themselves, and I want that to be a safe decision. And if just simply holding conservative positions makes it an unsafe position, then that's absolutely wrong, and that's what I seek to change. Whatever your position is, guys, the only people that I think should be having any problems getting around in America are the ones that are creating these problems for you. They are deranged, sociopathic, and criminally those people have some seriously sick predilections. All you have to do is go, guys, I warned you about everything involving like Antifa, for example, like what's going on with their cell phone hacks. They just do their protests as technology hacks, like I'm telling you. It's for them trapping text messages, stealing people's IP addresses to send their files over them. And why do you think that the people defending that transgendered person with a penis, they got into a hot tub with a little kid down at that Los Angeles spa? Why do you think that the organization defending them is called SoCal Antifa? Why? S-O call. They're the sex offenders phone network. S-O sex offender call. SoCal, repurposed, Southern California sex offender call network. Antifa. They create clouds of coverage to do child pornography, human trafficking, drug trafficking, all their illicit shit, while they run around telling people they're social justice warriors and you can't criticize them. While who defends them constantly? I've been saying this about the way it works in Portland too. It's the same shit, guys. Even you know how they say all cops are bastards, ACAB? No, they're communicating cellular bands. When you see them chant that, they're talking about A side carrier, C side. So there's subdirectories of sub bands within PCS frequencies, and then you have your main bands that are in the 850 megahertz range, and they're classified as A, B, and then some of the sub bands on PCS would be the AC. So I think what they're really communicating is PCS band A, PCS band C, cellular band A, cellular band B. And then they have channel numbers that they communicate as these other chants within their alleged protests. They communicate channel numbers like 777, 691, all the other channel numbers they're using to do their sex offender calls. This is how they transmit child pornography from user to user in Y-mesh private networks, and they dope other people's IP addresses, and they know they're going to get caught. So the first thing they're going to do is go like, you can't come after us because it's bigotry and it's sexism and it's racism and it's... They're hiding behind all those social justice issues. Even if you're a person that believes in all that and feels rigidly about your pronouns, if you believe in Antifa, you're being duped or you're one of them. And so I'm just letting you guys know. the channel selection and the mobile networks of protesters that are really, when you look at Antifa, just look at them as human nodes in a cloud repeater of a cell tower intercept. It is a cellular tower intercept that is designed to use the smartphones held by the alleged protesters. Those phones hive together in a Y-mesh network to transfer files and money back and forth to each other. Every time they get close to each other, it just auto-ons, AI, transfer, send, receive, send, receive, send, receive. They get it all done in the cloud, but that information has to get out from their SO calls out onto the regular network because they still use everybody else's sandbox. That's done with everyone else's phones. When you show up to protest them, you become deplorable, not the ones doing the data. They want you to get close to them and angry at them so they can use your IP address. Duh. Just letting you know. All right. Had to get a little cup of coffee there. So that's the Pegasus hack and what I know about as far as the whatever you want to call it, the you know, like just the basics of it and things like that as far as what I've experienced. But yeah, I think the thing that's not being communicated out there enough is that there is ways to sort of siphon money off transactions. And so, you know, at the end of the day, guys, though, just kind of summarizing, if you're going to get a Freedom phone, just remember, go do your research. If you're gonna buy one, find out which one of these you MIGD is based on these tech articles. They'll tell you which one they're selling, and I think that they're selling like one of these A11s or whatever, or pretty close to an A11. And you'll notice that the retail price on these things is pretty cheap, $120, $100. And again, it doesn't mean that it's not a competent phone. It may work for you and things like that, you know, but it's just something to keep in mind, guys. That's the manufacturer. And you know, you have to ask yourself what your trust level is on the inventor or the person promoting the concept. Quite honestly, when I look at this, you know, some people, they look at like AOC, they look at, you know, Ocasio-Cortez, and they just like, for whatever reason, they just get upset. I don't know, man. Maybe I don't think this guy makes me upset, but when I look at him, I don't take him seriously. I think it's just one of those things where as a tech person, I kind of go, so anyways, but, all right. So that's basically what I got. If you guys wanted to ask questions about the phones, feel free. If you have any other questions, I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes in case I have anything else to think about. Oh, so yeah, Tan Tran says it's the Umidigi A9 Pro Freedom Edition. So A9. Okay, so there you go, guys. If you want me to go back on the screen, it would be, this is the A11. So let's go back to their phones here. A9. So it's Sony 48 megapixel quad camera, Helio P60 up to 6 gigabytes, 128 gigabytes. So yeah, there's your tech specs. So, you know, hey, you know, at least if you want your tech specs, that you got to go to their website, but it may be a modified one of this phone. Yeah, not trying to advertise or whatever, anything like that. But yeah, so sorry, Jane. Jane asked, do you know that Nixon built a pyramid in South Dakota? No, I didn't. And that there's a pyramid type structure named Nixon in Nevada. No, I didn't know that either. But thank you for that tip. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, I do have a lot of opinions on what's going on out there right now. Isn't it kind of weird, guys? Those of you who follow my material, one of the last field reports I did was from Lake Mead, and now the national news, and you know, not to mention a local one, I'm sure, has been inundated with stories about how Lake Mead is drying up and how it's like at a record low. But they did get like a monsoon type condition, like in the last week or so. There was like huge storms out there, I noticed. So that might have changed since then. I can't imagine though that one monsoon would like radically fill up, you know, that dam to, after years and years and years of getting lower. But that's what's going on out at the Hoover Dam in Lake Mead, is it's the water level is dropping. You can see a huge ring around where the dryness is there. And, some of my more abstract information, folks, kind of connects what's going on in Lake Mead. There's a really strange geographic, I don't know how else to describe it. It's a strange link that connects the Altai Pyramid in Russia. It aims and directly points at Lake Mead, and it's exactly 25%, circumference around the world, right? So if you're at the point where the pyramid in Russia was, it literally goes to the quarter mark of where the like relative to the United States, the pyramid is here, and you travel exactly 25% around the world, and there's an inverse of a pyramid in Russia. It's like Lake Mead is an inverse of it. And so it's strange, like I was talking about this, and it's been hard for me to communicate, guys. It's one of those more abstract data points that I had that I really try to talk to people about, but they still don't always get it. And I know it's relevant, but maybe that whatever's going on in Lake Mead will make it more self-evident what's going on out there. I have a feeling like we're in for a hell of a ride when it comes to a lot of weather events, but they're not all going to end negatively. And I would say, folks, that there really is going to be something on a global level of a positive nature that's going to be happening. And I think that we're going to be seeing some new land actually rise somewhere out near the Christmas Islands and Tahiti. That's a region I got a tip off about that years ago, but it was like the last couple years I've been getting increasingly more and more hints that that's going to happen, and that it's going to involve an enormous displacement of water globally, that there's a little bit of ice glaciers melting, but don't let people program you into thinking this is all going to be a big disaster and it's going to flood coastlines and cause all these types of global devastations. What you might find is in certain areas, it's going to have a draining effect, and it's going to expand coastlines in some cases. It won't always be a bad thing. And that you're going to, and so like areas that were actually in danger of potentially going underwater may actually survive and have expanded coastlines. That's all I'm telling you. And that there's areas of the desert that are also going to get quite a bit of water going to them at some point. So I do think that that's actually on its way. When exactly, I don't know. But I do think that we're getting a lot of the signs of it. And I think some of it connects to what's going on at Lake Mead. So it'll be interesting to see what happens soon. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate you joining, everybody. I'm going to be signing off myself here in about, the next minute or so. But yeah, I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all the support. And on that note, folks, anybody, if this information provides useful to you, I would really appreciate it if anybody could contribute to the channel right now to help keep it going. Just need to have some expenses paid for the long-term goals and things like that. So anything you guys can do, it's all down there in the description section. I do appreciate any support you can throw my way. Yeah, and so True Seeker says, Candace Owens asked for people to make a phone that can get Parler, Owen, and other apps. And yeah, and then she put it. So there you go, guys. I mean, I get that they made a phone or whatever, but it really is just a modified Android OS, and the phone itself you want to look into. So, again, just watch the article from the beginning and you'll kind of get the core points what I was talking about. So, I'm not saying that it's a good or bad concept at the end of the day. I understand why they went about doing it that way, but just look deeper into the potential pitfalls, especially when it comes to the carriers out there potentially having to pull the device off their networks or block them from being used if they have certain exploits, okay? It's just something to be aware of, guys. It could happen, all right? Anyways, have a good day, folks. Appreciate you joining. Thank you.